So thank you both for meeting me, and it's great to have Angela with us. You're our first parent. I've spoken to one other parent, but you're our first parent of talking with me and Simon. So thank you very much. And I just also wanted to just say thanks, Simon. I was telling Angela that if it wasn't for you, this thing wouldn't have got started. So I think we had to do a few videos together to get the momentum going. And Angela recommended someone today who's all into feelings, and you've seen my posts and questions and things. So I appreciate that very much, Angela, and really grateful that that we've got our first parent with us, and I hope to have many more parents that we have conversations with, because me and Simon aren't parents. We don't know what it's like to be a parent, and we're just eager to learn, well, I think maybe Simon's more of a soundboard for me, and I'm eager to learn about parenting and be a parent and learn from Simon and his journey. So you were telling us a bit about you being an ESOL teacher. Did I understand right? You're an ESOL teacher, and you've chosen to unschool your 6-year-old daughter. You're a single mum. You have a 2-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter. So I'd love to know what led you to the decision of unschooling your daughter, and how do you manage that?
I think I kind of fell into unschooling through my journey into gentle parenting. So as I started researching just about the kind of parent that I wanted to be and attachment parenting, it kind of led me into gentle parenting. And then from there, a lot of the things just really resonated with me as far as parenting without punishment, focusing on having a connected relationship with my kids as opposed to having our relationship be about control. And then, of course, as I started parenting in that way, then as we started getting to school age, I started really thinking about, okay, if we parent this way at home without punishment, without, threats and manipulation and incentives and bribes with rewards and things like that, how can I then put her into the system that functions entirely out of rewards and punishment, which is the public school system that I'm actually working for. And my daughter actually did attend a public pre-K for a couple months, and she absolutely hated it. She had a horrible experience with her teacher and the other students, and she kept asking to come home, and kept saying, Mommy, you're a teacher. Can I just learn at home with you? And so I just said, okay, I'm going to stop, forcing you to go back to this environment that her teacher was very punitive with her. She would scream at the class often. Even when I would go in to observe, her teacher would often yell at the students, and she would come home with like marks on her wrist from her teacher dragging her to timeout. And so it just was not a good environment for her. So then I kind of was like, okay, she's 5. We'll give unschooling a try. It was something I had started researching. But I wasn't really sure how that would work in real life. And I figured, kindergarten, I know most of the things that she would have to learn in kindergarten. She had mastered most of them already at that point, just from the work that we had, been doing at home together. And so I figured, we'll try it for a year, see how it goes. So we finished our first year of, official unschooling, and we love it. And so we've talked about it, and she has no desire at this point to go back to, the public school system. She loves being able to have that freedom and learn at home, and that I get to be able to learn alongside with her. So we love it.
Awesome. I have many questions. So tell me more about gentle parenting, because, Simon and I have talked about Rule 5 from, I spoke with Moira about Rule 5 from Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life. Let me just read the rule to you.
Okay.
One moment. I can't remember it. It's something like, don't do anything that makes you dislike your children. So that rule is all about, it's about having minimum necessary rules, which would resonate with what you're saying, I suppose. But I certainly, after reading that book, because it's so, he's saying that if you if you don't have any, if you don't have any rules, it makes it really difficult for children to be likable and sociable. And I've struggled with that rule because I've been a teacher, I've worked in different schools, I've been a primary teacher, I've been a maths teacher in a secondary school. And I've also been really interested in the radical unschooling philosophy and anything sort of connected with that. So do you think, I'd love to know a bit more about gentle parenting. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that, please?
Sure. I think gentle parenting, I really try to view my daughter as an equal human being with me, that her opinions and her feelings are just as valid and important as mine. And at the same time, that there are things that both of us can learn from each other. And so I try to kind of view our relationship as just that I focus on my relationship with her and not enforcing or imposing external rules or consequences and things like that, but rather coming alongside with her, guiding her, talking with her, having communication with her about life or different issues as they come up, and then we kind of work through them together. And I try to encourage her to be the problem solver and not me be the one to kind of put these external things to fit her into some particular box. But we dialogue through different scenarios, or how do you feel when this happens, or I don't know, I guess it's easier if we to talk about a particular scenario. Or is there a particular scenario that you're, I guess, curious about? Or
No, I was just writing down a couple of things and had some thoughts. Okay, yeah. So I totally, the way I see my interactions with people in general is it's an opportunity to learn from them, and I think that's probably what you liked about my comments on your post. You could see that I was eager. Is that right?
you
I was eager. I
very
was eager to
inquisitive.
learn. Well, yeah, because it was about your daughter using technology, and you talking about how to, is that going to stop? Is she going to use it less? And a lot of parents were talking about self-regulation. I thought it was just so insightful for me because if I'd have approached that from Jordan Peterson's rule 5 of needing to have some boundaries for children. That was my first thought of, no, surely you can't let them just use technology as much as you want. But then reading the comments, seeing that children do self-regulate. And my belief is that children will, because I think I've spoken to someone about this. There's a school in the UK in Suffolk called Summerhill, and it was founded by a guy called A.S. Neil. Are you familiar with Summerhill at all? Or A.S. Neil?
No, I'm not.
You're not. No, it's I think when we talk about alternative schools, it was probably one of the first to start. And his philosophy is very nice. Like I think democratic schooling came from him, and some other things. So
like Sudbury schools, kind of a thing.
Which one? Sorry,
Like
Sudbury.
a Sudbury school.
Yeah, similar but different. So the difference in a Summerhill school is that kids do go to classes. There are formal classes at Sudbury Valley. Our audience and Simon probably aren't familiar that with Sudbury Valley children, it's kind of unschooling, isn't it? Children do what they want when they want. Have I understood that? Is that right, Angela?
Yes, they do. And I know each Sudbury school is different, but I think it more focuses on student choice. The students are, of course, able to take classes or courses or things like that, but it's something that they're choosing rather than some external system of like, okay, now we're going to learn algebra 2.
Exactly. Yeah. So just bringing that back to Summerhill, then in Summerhill they do have school classes of algebra, and children can attend or not. So that's the distinction.
Are the students like choosing those classes, or is it just kind of
They are
that?
Yeah, they are, and that brings me to the use of technology. So what they're doing when they arrive at the school, they can play as much as they want. They can be outside as much as they want. When they're ready to go to class, they go to class. So that to me feels similar to the children using technology as much as they want. When they're ready, they will shift to something else, be it learning with technology or painting or whatever. So So that resonates with me in terms of learning from the child. I really like that. And I believe that it's necessary to have a minimum necessary rules. What do you think about, because JP talks about not being the child's friend, and you're saying to me that you're more like I think you did say more like a friend. Can you see any potential problems with that of being more of a friend than a parent? Because JP says you have many friends, but you only have two parents.
Mm-hmm. That is very interesting. In regards to your question about rules, I think it's just a shift in focus. You know, it's not that there aren't rules, but that it's like there's a conversation about that. There's a dialogue about that, and she's a part of making those rules. So it's not like we just don't have any rules and there's just chaos everywhere. You know, we talk about you know, hey Sophia, I know my daughter's name is Sophia. You know, how long would you like to play on your tablet today, or would you like to go play something else? You know, we talk about how do you feel when you eat, you know, sugar. That's another big thing. How do you feel when you eat too much sugar? You know, we're mindful about like how do we feel when we do that, or when we stay up too late, or how does that impact our body? How does that impact our mood? And we talk about that, and as opposed to just like, okay, we're going to set these rules of like, oh, I'm only going to do this for, you know, half an hour or something like that, or whatever. Like it's more of that conversation, and then making choices based on those things, and having a dialogue about why we do certain things or why we don't do certain things, or you know, why is that video something we probably don't want to watch, or you know, how do you feel when you hear, she likes to watch YouTube videos a lot, and that's been one of the things that I talked about in the group, that a lot of times she'll, you know, there'll be a YouTube video and of like kids playing games, and they'll be kind of like fighting back and forth. And so we talk about, you know, how do you feel when you see these kids talking to each other that way, that they're, you know, not speaking kindly to one another? And she's like, I don't really like that, you know, when they don't talk nice to one another. And it doesn't make me feel good when I hear people speaking meanly, even though they're just playing. She doesn't like that. And so we talk about, I like more watching, you know, videos about animals, or, you know, other things like that, that she's happier about that. And so that's kind of like, I guess, our view on rules, is that it's not me imposing rules on her, but rather we're having a conversation about why we have the rules that we do. And she's a part of creating those rules. People I find are more inclined to obey rules or follow rules when they understand the why, and they're a part of the process, rather than just some external force that's like, okay, this is just what we're going to do just because I say so, you know? And regarding being her friend, she knows that I'm her mom, but at the same time, you know, she's my daughter. I love her more than anything, and I know that she loves me as her mom, and there's a trust there, and there's a love there. You can call it friendship, of course. You know, it's different than the way I would interact with my own personal, you know, friends as a mom. But I don't think we have to kind of pit those things against each other. Like either you be a parent or you be a friend. Like I can be her parent and still have a connected, loving, respectful, mutual relationship with her, where she's valued as a human being in our relationship just as much as I am. So I don't know if that.
So
That's yes. I was going to say, Simon, jump in.
Yeah.
Jump in whenever you want, Simon.
Okay. So because we are talking about like friends and like parents, where do you think is the boundary between like parents and friends? Like, because I consider just these two like as labels, nothing more,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
I think a lot of times when people view the word parent, they think of like this authority figure that's kind of untouchable, where you limit yourself, you know, I guess, in your relationship with your child. But I don't really view my daughter like that. Like we share very openly about, you know, when she does things that hurt me, or when I do things that hurt or offend her. You know, we have conversations about our relationship, and how things that both of us do make the other person feel. You know, she shares with me very openly when, you know, if there's a time that if I'm on my phone too long, she'll say, Mom, I feel like, you know, you don't care about me, or you're ignoring me, or something like that. You know, we're able to have that conversation, just as I would want any of my other friends to do. You know, if I was hanging out with any other person in my life, I would want them to share with me when they're feeling ignored or they're feeling like I don't care about them. So I think it's again, that shift in focus between my role as a parent is this authority figure to just kind of control, as opposed to, you know, my job as your parent is to prepare you to one day be an adult, to one day leave my home, to one day be your own, you know, individual that's out there in the world making your own choices. And I can either use this precious time now while you're small to have those conversations with you, help you process your thinking, help you with critical thinking, help you, you know, consider other ways, show you by my own modeling of like ways that I would want you to interact with other people or behave or whatever. And I can do that in like a loving, connected way where it's like we're on the same team. You know, we have the same goal, as opposed to I'm the authority that's forcing you to do things just because it's what I want for you, you know?
Yeah, definitely. That's actually a really exhaustive answer. And I was also wondering, so
exhausting or exhaustive?
Exhaustive.
Yeah.
So I was also wondering, how do you build up a sort of like reciprocal respect? Because that's what like an authority, let's say, as like taken from as premise. Let's say if you are an authority, you have respect from others generally. So if this is not really this boundary between being friends or like parents. So how do you build up this respect?
So I think you're saying if you're an authority, you demand respect. It's not mutual.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I think you just said it, you know, a lot of people view this authoritarian way of parenting or even teaching as, you know, I'm kind of the authority figure here, as opposed to, you know,
I know best, perhaps. I know best.
Yeah, I know best because I've lived longer on the planet, you know, and I think a lot of people think that, and just because, and yes, there is wisdom that comes with age and growing older, and there are things that I've experienced that she hasn't. So of course there's a certain knowledge that I have that she doesn't have yet, just because she's 6 and I'm not. But it would be ignorant of me to kind of take that perspective that I'm the only person that has something to teach in this relationship. There's so much that she can teach me, and there's a lot that I have to learn from her, you know. So I think, again, it just comes back to, you know, I give respect to her as a human being, and she gives respect back to me without me having to demand that. And I think that that's where true respect really comes in, because if you're only respecting someone because they're this authority figure, you know, is that really genuine respect for that person just because they're this, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's probably the opposite of what happens like in the educational system, that you have to respect the teacher, right? For example.
Yeah.
And so that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
You're respecting the teacher just because they're the teacher, and not because not because they've earned your respect.
Yeah, or even because a lot of times they don't treat their own students with respect as individuals, as human beings that have gifts and talents and passions that they can contribute to the classroom in a meaningful way, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're also a teacher, right?
I am, yes.
So how do you build this sort of, or how do you give and how do you obtain respect from your students? Do you act in the same way as you do with your children, or do you do something different?
I do, actually. So for example, in my classroom, we don't have rules. We do like a community contract. So we talk about, like, in order for us to be successful, what are our goals as a classroom? What are our goals as a community? And what is necessary for us to be able to achieve those goals? So for example, you know, if I'm teaching a Spanish class, we talk about, you know, does it really work if everyone's kind of talking all at the same time? No, it doesn't work. You know, so we talk about what does that look like to be respectful in the classroom. So typically our, you know, I don't really have rules. We have like standards of behavior, I guess you could say, or expectations for behavior. So my 4 expectations for behavior that I have for my classroom are respect, integrity, discipline, and excellence. And so from the very first day of class, I share with my students, these are the 4 things that I give to you as a human being and as a teacher. And they're also the things that if in order for our classroom to be successful, for you to be successful as an individual, and for our group as a class to be successful, we all need to operate with these things. So we talk about that, and I give them all an opportunity. Is there anyone who thinks that they cannot operate in this space with respect, integrity, discipline, and excellence? And I give them a chance to kind of communicate that from the beginning. And we talk about that, and we all sign it, including myself. I sign that. And so whenever there's any issues, I guess, with behavior in the classroom, we go back to that and we say, okay, as on our very first day, we agreed that we would operate with respect, integrity, discipline, and excellence. And right now we're not doing that. So that we give our word to something, our word is all we have. And so it's more of that community approach of like, I'm on your team, we're all here so that we can all be successful in reaching this goal of passing Spanish class, or whatever it is, learning Spanish, and this is how we can support it. And when we don't, I try to focus more on like who we are being as opposed to what we're doing, because if you notice, those aren't things to do. Being
Those
a person
ways
of integrity, exactly, they're ways of being as opposed to anything else. So like as a person of integrity, what that looks like is that because I'm a person of integrity, I'm not going to plagiarize my work, I'm not going to cheat, I'm not going to do these other things. As a person who's disciplined, what does that look like? It looks like I'm going to do my homework that's assigned to me, or I'm going to make sure to show up for class on time. Things like that. So it's more of a focus on who are we being rather than what we're doing, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Are they junior school or high school?
I have taught everything from kindergarten through 12th grade. And even with my elementary kids, we have those conversations about, kind of our community expectations for the class. But that was a really big, I think it was a game changer for me when I started doing that in my classroom. Yeah, especially with my high school students, and several of them would tell me that they never had a teacher that would talk like that, because most teachers have this list of rules of, don't speak without raising your hand, or don't get up to go to the bathroom, or, things like that, and just kind of arbitrary rules about all the things that we're not going to do, and I was like, I don't want to focus on what we're not going to do. I want us to focus on who we're going to be as human beings, and then from that space to look at what does that look like in what we're going to do.
Do they know what? So, for example, have integrity. That's something that I'm doing better at. I'm not sure I've always done well at that, and I've been trying harder at that. But then I'm not always 100% sure whether something is being integral or not, having integrity or not. So, do these kids know?
Well, from the very first day, we talk about our definitions. I actually do an activity with them that, I have like the respect, integrity, discipline, and excellence up, and I have them give examples of what that would look like for them, of what that means to them. We look up the dictionary definitions of those words so that they understand what those words mean. So we talk about, my working definition of integrity is honoring your word, doing what's right when no one's looking, those kinds of things. And so we have a conversation to establish what exactly that means from the very first day of class. And then from that point, we operate the rest of the time. And we have opportunities for do-overs if the class is going crazy, or something like that. Everyone's
like,
kind
let's reevaluate the rules.
Yeah, and we'll have
expectation.
Yeah, I've had a class before that I was like, okay, this is not working. I'm getting upset. You guys are getting upset. I'm not being who I want to be in this space. We're going to go outside and we're going to come back in and we're going to start fresh, and we did. I got all 42 of my students. We went outside the classroom and we kind of took a breath outside and we walked back in and we started class all over again. Because I was like, even for me as myself, like, I don't want to operate my classroom that I'm feeling tense and angry and stressed, frustrated, and like that. It's not who I want to be in that space, So
So
yeah.
you've got a lot of emotional awareness, and that must be
Oh,
so positive for both your daughter and your students. And I've just become aware, like it's such a great bridge. Like you're creating a bridge, aren't you, between being a teacher in a school and being an unschooling parent. Like those two views are opposing, aren't they? In some ways, not in all ways. So I have a question then. I've had a conversation with a parent and existential analyst in Russia. Her name's Moira, and we were talking about that by cleaning your room, you can build your self-esteem. And then I was speaking with my student's son today. He's 18, and we were talking, and he showed me his room, and he showed me the desk, and the desk was messy, and the bed wasn't made. But generally, the room was pretty tidy, I thought. And he was saying that his parents would always be on him they'd want him to clean his room, and there'd be sort of arguments and that, and in the end they just gave up, and there was just one rule, and that was when any grandparent or auntie or whatever came round, then the room had to be clean. So it's clear that the parents feel ashamed, and he's got to clean his room. But that's all he has to do. We're not asking for much, kind of thing. And so then I was like, okay, that's curious. So, so they were telling you to clean the room, you didn't want that. And then I said, oh, okay, so what would have happened? So I was like, oh, so are they clean? And he talked about his dad and how I haven't said his name, have I, by the way?
No.
Have I said
No,
his
no, you didn't.
Okay, good,
No.
yeah. So I think this is okay. I think, do I have integrity right now? Am I having integrity? I don't know sometimes if giving details. I suppose as long as I don't say the name, I have an integrity, right?
You're fine.
You
You're
can say.
fine.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So he's telling yeah, that's right. So he had a babysitter, and the babysitter ended up doing the cleaning because he was a good kid. This is what he said, and I actually believe him. Like, she didn't have much to do, and she ended up cleaning. And then she ended up being their cleaner once she stopped looking after him. And so he was saying that his dad is like, because I've tutored his dad. His dad is organized, and his dad's organized. So in that way, he's like well, I don't know if he's like his dad, but they're similar to each other in that they're not clean. So they may be organized and good at what they do, but they're not clean. So that then made me think, oh, huh?
I can relate to that. I can very much relate to that.
Because you're messy, or
No, well, just everything we're sharing. I had a nanny growing up too, and it was the same kind of thing. My nanny would clean for me, and so I never really had to until I was older. And I don't know if this is a thing where you live, but at least in my family, Saturdays were cleaning day. Do you do that there?
in Europe?
At least here, no.
No cleaning day for me.
Well, no. I guess it's like a thing here. I'm sure there are other families that do it differently, but here we would have Saturdays were cleaning day. So literally the entire day on Saturday, we would have to clean the whole day. So I went from never cleaning during the week because my nanny did it all for me to now Saturday I have to clean the toilets, the baseboards, the windows, all this stuff. And my parents would tell me, like, you can't come out of your bedroom until it's clean. And I was like, I don't want to clean the toilet, so I'm going to dance and sing in my room, all day long. And so I had a really, I guess, bad relationship with cleaning. It kind of felt like a punishment almost, that I had to like be locked in my room all day on a Saturday, till it was done, and it was miserable. And I was like, I don't. So even now as an adult, it's been hard for me to learn those skills. And I remember joking, before that, gosh, I would rather tutor for an hour and make $50 and pay someone to clean my house for the day than for me to spend 6 hours of my Saturday trying to clean up. But yeah, it's definitely something that I'm working on now. And it's something I have in the back of my mind of like, what do I want my daughter's relationship to cleaning? What do I want that to look like? What do I want that to be? You know, do I want her to feel like the way I did, that cleaning was something that you know, we got to lock yourself in your room until it's done, or that it's this like, God, annoying, painful process, you know, chore thing that it is, or you know, my best friend is the opposite of me. She loves cleaning. She loves to have a clean, tidy space. And so she's really helped me a lot, you know, just as in growing in that area. But yeah, with my daughter, it's definitely something that I invite her to be a part of the process. So we make laundry fun. We'll do, you know, matching socks. We'll like dump them all on the floor, and we'll see who can find the most matches the fastest, you know, things like that. So she's a part of, you know, the process. Or we sing while we wash dishes together. Or I'll have her choose, you know, do you want to wash or dry? Like, so she's still invited to be a part of the process and learning those skills. But I'm hoping that it's not having kind of, I guess, those negative connotations that I felt. But I can totally relate to your student in that of like being organized, but at the same time being messy. I think that's very much how I feel.
Yeah, so I mean, so he was always responsible for his room. She didn't clean his room, so he did have ownership of that. But I guess from that, I concluded that modeling can really help, because his dad wasn't modeling that to him, because his mum was doing it for him and his dad, right? So that made me think, oh, okay, so modeling is the way forward. So, you know, just through these different conversations, one person thinks this, another person thinks that. I'm trying to get some sort of clear picture. And then I talked to the dog trainer friend. She's 14 in Poland, and I said, how was it for you? And she told me that, yeah, there was an argument, and then they talked about it, and then it sort of made sense. And but she thinks her parents are too clean, like obsessively clean. So I was like, oh, I don't get it. Like, okay, so that they modeled that, but she's also resisting the cleaning thing. So you soon realize that, gosh, parenting's hard. Like, I can't, through my conversations, I can't even make head nor tail of it, you know, like what's the way forward, you know? So I can see the way you're doing it is from a really young age. She's engaged in the process, right? So you are modeling it to her, and you are having a conversation with her, because that's what you do with everything, I guess, or most things.
Yeah. How do you feel when your space is clean? Do you like it when it's clean? Do you like it when it's messy? Yeah. Of course, you know, most people prefer their spaces when they're clean. You know, we feel better in a space that's clean. At least I think so. I don't know. I haven't met someone yet who's like, I love my messy space, you know.
Well, I think people have different levels of cleanliness, don't they? Not everyone wants a necessarily clean room. So can you see any challenges up ahead? So might you be surprised? You know, I was watching, this is a very, like, difficult film to watch. It's called Beautiful Boy. And he says at the very beginning, have you seen the film, Angela?
I have not.
Beautiful Boy. Have you seen it?
No.
It's a lovely film about a father whose son becomes a drug addict, and it's super. And like at the beginning, he's like, you know, I thought I knew my son. Like I thought we had this, you know, I knew everything about him, and really I knew nothing, because he's been taking drugs for a few years. So, you know, watching that, I got that, you know, just, oh wow, it's like it's challenging to be a parent, and you know, the unexpected can happen, right? You know, and do you ever think, of course, I don't mean to compare it with that, and I hope nothing ever like that happens, but are you sort of expecting that, oh, maybe things won't work out? Because I'm not a parent, and I think like I've got all that. Like, you're a teacher, you've been a teacher for many years, and I've been a teacher for many years, and I speak with people 30 hours a week. I'm learning what it means to be a human being, like how, you know, I'm learning from them about how to grow and stuff. And I, you know, watching that film, and maybe now this week in trying to make headspace of whether children should clean their room, the conclusion I've come to is that I don't have all the answers. And you
And
know,
that's perfect space to be. It's a great space to be.
to not have all the answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a scary space, right?
Yes.
Do you think so? I mean, watching that film, I felt
It
quite
can be
terrified.
intimidating.
Sorry?
It's definitely intimidating to feel like you don't have all the answers, and you're not sure quite how these choices might turn out, in the millions of ways.
Future. Yeah.
I think that's
So you're open to the unknown or the unexpected. You're sort of prepared for things not to go the way you expect them.
that's actually, at least for me, quite like motivational, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because you have still a lot to discover, and so I mean, I would just go for it, just really straightforward. Like, I don't know, just me, but
Take
so,
all the risks.
What do you want to say with that, Simon? As in sort of you just do your best. You like enjoy the journey, like embrace like not have fears. Yeah.
And I have a question for you, Angela, regarding your children. So, what have you learned so far from them? Because I want to know like those
Nice
like
question.
benefits of homeschooling. Because so from my perspective, if I were you, also a teacher, and I wouldn't have thought about like the homeschooling, and that's why I also would like to know why do you really went for this option? Because I would have felt like just about another environment, or maybe changing school, like changing school, right? So maybe a more an healthier environment, maybe a better teacher or something like that. So why do you go? So my first question is, why do you go for homeschooling? And my second one is, what have you learned so far from this experience and from your children?
Angela, sorry to interrupt you, Angela, just before you answer those two questions, do you want to explain the difference for our audience between homeschooling and unschooling? Because the difference.
Sure,
And you unschool, don't you? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we unschool. I prefer the term peaceful world schooling as opposed to unschool. But yeah, so typically when people think of homeschool, they think of school at home. So you're following some sort of curriculum or something like that. As a teacher, I always wanted to homeschool my kids because it just felt weird to me that here I am teaching kindergarten or first grade, and yet I'm going to send my own child somewhere else to someone else to learn what I'm capable of doing, what I've trained for myself, and I loved as a teacher kind of seeing those light bulb moments, watching my students, learning how to read and learning how to do all these different things and exploring science. And so I always wanted that, I was like, I would love to be able to kind of be a part of that journey for my children, of watching them and learning with them. And so that was something that I always wanted for myself. After she had a really bad experience in public school, I when she asked me and she was like, Mom, you're a teacher, can I please just stay home and we can learn together? That was when I was like, okay, this is something that she's wanting. I noticed that she was after being in that environment, she was having a lot of anxiety. She started having more like nightmares in the night. She was having a lot of issues going to school. She would cry in the morning, was saying she didn't want to go to school, that she felt afraid, didn't like, her teacher was, yelling so much. And because that was not what we practiced at home. She was never exposed to, that. And so, we decided to have her come home. When I taught kindergarten and first grade as an ESOL teacher, I taught reading. And so that was a big shift for me as I started researching and reading books about John Holt and some other people who have kind of really pioneered the world of unschooling. I started learning about the importance of, instead of me being the teacher for my children, of me being a student of them. and learning how do they learn best, learning what they're passionate about, learning what they're interested in, and then supporting them in their interests. So, for example, instead of following a curriculum that's like, okay, we're going to learn adding today, and we're going to do this worksheet. It looks a little bit different for us. So, for example, my daughter loves to cook. So once a week, she decided that she wanted to be responsible for cooking the meal for our family. And so what that looks like for her is that she makes a list. So she's practicing her writing of all the ingredients that we have to buy at the grocery store. She gets a budget of how much money that she's able to spend on the groceries. So in that, we're learning about, money, adding, subtracting, things like that. We talk about health as well, like preparing a healthy meal at home. So she's learning, that health aspect there. Cooking is, science. We look up recipes from different cultures. So we like to cook, different ethnic cuisine. So we'll look up a recipe that's from a different country or a different culture and practice, cooking something new. And so we're learning science and social studies in that. So in that one activity, we're covering so many different, math, science, reading, writing, social interaction, with shopping, going to the grocery store, looking at how much things cost, learning how to buy food and looking at unit prices, all those things. She's 6 years old, and she's learning those life skills that I didn't learn until, I was an adult, or much as at least a teenager. And so it's, instead of, just kind of going through a curriculum, we really view all of life as learning, and that there's something that she can learn, and there's value in everything that we're doing. And so, yeah, so we're not following any particular,
curriculum. You're
curriculum.
starting with the child, aren't you, and not the curriculum.
We start with her and the things that she's interested in and what she loves and enjoys, and I, try to support her in those things that she's interested in, and trust that, as the need arises, when she has a need for, higher level math, she's going to have the resources that, available to be able to figure out and problem solve how to learn those things as she needs them. Reading was hard for me. I was like, okay, I'm a reading teacher. How do I not teach my child how to read? How's she going to learn how to read if I don't teach her how to read? That was something that, or it's still something that was hard for me, but it's been an incredible experiment for me. She's 6 years old. She's learning how to read. She's teaching herself how to read. And it's been fascinating for me just to observe her in that process, So yeah, it's very different, unschooling than homeschooling, but we love it.
So thanks for explaining the difference and the reason why you unschooled. And I just had a thought, and that is, a lot of parents who might watch this, who don't unschool or homeschool their children, might be thinking, but sure, you're a teacher, of course you can unschool your children. What would your answer be to them? What would you say to these parents who aren't teachers, who were thinking of unschooling or homeschooling?
Yeah.
Do they need to be teachers to do that?
That is a great question. No, you do not need to be a teacher to be able to unschool or homeschool. Every human being has knowledge and something to offer to their children, whether that be skills as a mechanic or engineer, whatever your job is, whatever your interests are, you have the ability to help kind of share your own interests with your kid and see if that's something that interests them. But also, I'm not like the only person that knows things, like it's not just me teaching her, but I'm able to guide her and help her to get those resources that she needs as she needs them. She was really interested in horses for a while. I don't know the first thing about horses, taking care of horses. So I connect her to other people who do. We go to a farm and she learns from the people who are just as passionate about horses as she is, And so, you know, it's not that I'm the only person that's involved in teaching or learning with her, but kind of helping her find those other resources. So you don't have to do it by yourself. And just kind of think for yourself. You know, I know you mentioned that you just recently started doing these videos, right?
Me,
Yeah.
yeah, me and Simone, yeah, we started
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago. We're just
Okay.
figuring it out as we go along. Yeah,
Exactly. So
it's
how have you been learning how to
yeah,
do?
it's an unschooling experiment, isn't it? We're
It really is,
unschooling
you know.
ourselves.
This
Yeah,
isn't
I don't see any
normal that
difference between entrepreneurship and unschooling. I think they're really similar. It's just doing what you want when you want and
and figuring
learning
it
to go along and figuring it out and learning from experts. So, you know, I'm not even, you know, I was saying to my friend who we're doing, she's a love, sex, and relationship. She's learning to be a love, sex, and relationship coach.
out.
And we did we had a great chat yesterday. And afterwards we were talking about, she was saying about, you know, maybe watching some other people. And I was sort of doing that. I was watching some interviews and stuff. I was just like, you know what? No, I'm just going to roll with how I'm doing it. Like, I just like the way I'm,
You
you
just
know,
don't.
there's lots to learn from other people, but I think there's a lot to say from just following having our own voice and
Yeah,
finding our own style and
absolutely.
just falling into it rather than modeling other people. But there's a lot to say about from modeling. So thanks. That really answers my question. And I think is it Tom Holt? Oh, is it Tom Holt, isn't it? John
John,
Holt. John Holt. John Holt. Yeah, I think he says like his one of his arguments, I think, if I remember rightly, is that you know, as a parent, you know, before your baby's born, you don't know how to breastfeed them, you don't know how to change their nappy, and you just figure it out. And I think it's true of like of everything, that you can support your child with learning everything, and it's more about you having this sort of deeper connection and
yeah,
knowing your child, knowing what they like and they don't like, you know. So that's really valuable, and something that I think may be lost sometimes in school when teachers don't have the time. You know, we can empathize with them maybe when they don't have the time, or there's just so many in the class. It's hard to really know someone intimately like that. Is it correct? You know, I do
yeah.
one to one. Please.
This last year, I was teaching algebra 2 at a high school, and I was working with special education students. So I recently got certified in special ed, and I remember there's a student that I had that he was completely failing algebra 2. Completely failing algebra 2, and I had to do like an interview with him, and as we were talking, he just was telling me, like, you know, he's really struggling with algebra 2. He doesn't get it. He feels so stupid and he's so frustrated. And as we were talking, he started sharing with me that I asked him if he had a job, and he said, no. He's like, I don't have a job. And he was like, well, actually, I do get paid for something. And I was like, what is that? And he's like, well, you know, I make videos, and I'm a social influencer. And I said, oh, okay, you know, how much? That's good. You know, how much are you able to make doing that? And he was like 3,000 to 4,000. And I was like, oh, last year? And he was like, no, last month. And I was like, really? That's more than I make teaching with a master's degree. And you're making videos in your free time feeling like you're a failure because you can't graph a formula. Like, this is just, it was just so bizarre to me. And I'm like, this guy, you know, he's having success learning skills, how to make YouTube videos and all these other things. And I mean, in some regard, you know, financially, he was doing better than I was doing as a teacher. And yet at the same time, he's like feeling like this failure because he can't pass algebra 2. And it just, that dichotomy of, like, you know, why is that necessary for him to learn how to, you know, graph some random formula because the state just said this is what you have to learn to be able to graduate, you know, when he's getting real valuable skills that I'm sure many businesses would love to have. I mean, he has 500,000 followers, and you know, he's doing great in the social media world, which is kind of where, I know we were talking about technology, you know, like things are moving in that technological way now, you know. And he didn't learn those skills in public school, that's for sure. But but it was interesting to kind of see that dichotomy there. But yeah.
Thanks. So just aware of the time and
Right.
and whether you had more to say on Simon's second question. So what have you learned as an unschooling parent? You've mentioned a couple of things. Just wondered if you had more to say about that.
I think the biggest thing I've learned is just to trust the process, and to trust the process, trust myself, trust my daughter. She's going to learn the things that she needs to learn when she needs to learn them. I don't have to be afraid, and I really can have a vibrant, loving relationship with my child, and I can enjoy it. The learning shouldn't be something that's painful, or forcing kids to do homework. Like, learning should be something that we enjoy and that we love and that we long to do for the rest of our lives, not just K through 12 or whatever. Just like you guys are doing, you're learning as you're growing your YouTube channel and making videos and figuring out how to do all that and grow in those skills. And all of life is learning, and I think that's probably been one of the biggest things that I've learned. I'm grateful to continue the experiment as she gets older. So we'll see. You could check back in with me in like 10 years and see how it turns out.
I'd like that.
But yeah, thank you so much for chatting with me today. It's been such a pleasure. I've really enjoyed watching your other videos, and I hope other people will continue to join in this conversation with both of you. You're very, very thoughtful, very intuitive, very profound young men. So thank you for opening up this channel.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Really appreciate that. Just maybe before you go, talking about trusting the process and trusting yourself and trusting your child, what would you recommend to parents with that who might be nervous or worried about doing that comes easily to you, but maybe not to every to people?
Yeah, getting connected with other people who've kind of walked this path before you.
Yeah.
That's been really helpful for me. I signed my daughter up for something called West River Academy, which is like an Unschool school or a world school. And the lady who started that, she's been doing unschooling for over 40 years. And so when I would kind of have a freak out moment of like, oh my gosh, is my daughter ever going to learn how to read? Is this really going to work? I could, call her and just, okay, please tell me I'm not going to, ruin her life. And she would say, just breathe. Yes, she's going to learn how to read, and she's going to learn in her own way, in her own time, and it's perfect. In the same way we don't freak out if a baby, if some babies walk when they're 11 months, some babies walk when they're 18 months. We don't, there's a range in that, and it's all okay. I'm not like, oh my gosh, they're, it's the end of the world. They're walking and they're 16 months, it's okay. And so kind of removing that pressure from myself and for her, by connecting with other people who've kind of walked that road before has been really helpful for me.
So having a support network.
I also have like one last question, if you can.
Yeah. Oh, good. I thought you were tired. I know you've had a busy day, and I'm also a bit tired. But you go first. I'm just going to grab some water, and you ask.
Sure. So, what are like the main challenges that you have to overcome during this whole process, and that you think like maybe other people should be aware of? Because we have talked like mainly about benefits, right? Yeah. Like the major challenges, I'm not aware about them. Like from what we have talked about, I would go for unschooling, and that's sure, because it gives a lot of benefits. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I think you've mentioned maybe one or two challenges. Maybe there are some others that come to mind.
Honestly,
I mean, before you answer that, I mean, you're a teacher and you're a single mom, so that's a huge challenge. How do you manage that?
Honestly, when my husband left us when I was pregnant with my son, and that was really hard. I was like, okay, how am I going to do this? Not just being a single mom, but how am I going to, homeschool or unschool as a single mom? How was I going to homeschool was my first question. But talking with other parents who they would say, first of all, homeschooling takes a lot less time than public school does, because you're not waiting for 30 other kids to catch up. And you can kind of go at your own pace, as fast or slow as you need. Also because there is no particular, curriculum necessarily that you have to follow. there's that, that takes off a lot of the pressure too. But I guess one of the biggest challenges for me, I think, is just dealing with my own fear, my own insecurities, my own, my own fears, basically, of like, oh gosh, what if she doesn't learn how to read, or what if she doesn't, know how to do algebra 2. And I don't know if you guys have read the Mathematicians Lament. You're a math guy. I think
we're both into maths.
Oh, you both are into maths?
I haven't read it. No.
Oh, same.
I'll have to send it to you guys. Maybe you could link it in the info part for this video. But there's something called the Mathematicians Lament, and when I read that, it just really, really resonated me. Are you looking it up now?
No, I'm actually looking up a book. Just as you were saying that, I was looking up a book for you, which is the book by A.S. Neal, because it would help also with your fear. It sounds like you've overcome your fears, but he gives many examples in his book of children not learning to read until they're much older, until they're 8, 9, 10. And they go on to be, I've told Simone before, they go on to be professors at universities, so they develop a love later in life. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, just thinking about when I feel that pressure of like, oh gosh, I have to teach her, she has to be at this certain reading level by the time she's this age. Because I feel that pressure as a teacher. I know that, she should be at this particular reading level. She's actually reading at a first grade level, like in the middle of first grade, just from my own experience. So she's kind of ahead already in her reading without me teaching her any reading, which is cool. But one of the things that was important for me is, I've taught many kids how to read, but teaching someone how to read doesn't teach someone to love to read. And that's something that's really, really important for me. I don't want her to just know how to read. I want her to love and enjoy reading. Reading is a tool for access to so many things, and by a lot of times by forcing kids to read or making them feel bad that they're not reading at a particular level, they miss out on that enjoyment and that fun that there is and that whole world that opens up through reading. So yeah.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah, I think so.
About developing a love for it instead of just doing it, and I think that's what may happen at schools that kids.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think it's that thing of forcing versus doing because you want to, isn't it? I think that's true of cleaning as well. I think if the child's in, if you're singing as you wash the dishes, then you're probably you're much more likely to do it later on in life than if you're being forced to do it. I think,
Yeah, I mean, you could turn anything into a game. We can make anything in life. You can make it a game. And even for myself as an adult, okay, I can have this view that cleaning is miserable and painful, or I can try to find ways that I can make it fun for myself and make it easier on myself. I think we do that, with everything. It really is just our perspective on how we approach our challenges in life.
That's awesome. Did that answer your question, Simone?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. I think we can end there. I quite like to keep it to an hour. So it was so nice to meet you, Angela, and thank you for the. I think you were going to put me in touch with your friend. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And it might be nice to meet you another day and talk about something else if that's interesting for you. So we could talk about that later. So thanks, guys.
Thank you. It was so nice to meet you
both
and to connect with you. Thank you for chatting with me today.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Night.
Bye. Oh.